Sweet home with serious mold issues. Mold can be seen on the supply registers on the second and the third floor. This may be in an ongoing situation since the filters in the supply vents were put in previous to this current homeowner. Presently there has been elevated humidity in the house. That's why we can find mold extensively on some furniture. Aspergillus penicillium is a type of mold that likes to grow on such surfaces. A tape lift was pulled, and sure enough, what we're finding is Aspergillus penicillium. Aspergillus penicillium is a concern because some of it produces aflatoxins, which are a nerve toxin, as well as can create fungal infections. So essentially throughout the second and third floor there are high humidity issues occurring during the summer. This high humidity allows this mold, Aspergillus penicillium, to grow on some surfaces that are porous and that have the right nutrient on them. But essentially throughout the second and third floor, all of the surfaces should be considered cross-contaminated, and they should be wiped down, and protection must be taken with the individual that is wiping down these surfaces so that they don't get any on them and they don't breathe it all in, because this is rather extensive. So there is a lot of mold spores right now floating around in the home, and it is of a type that's of a concern. Now going upstairs to the second floor, when this door is open, heat will run upstairs and the cold air, if there is any upstairs, will run down the stairs. So this allows this room to heat up, and the warmer this room is with the humidity issues, the more mold you get. And the return they have is located low, so it's pulling cool air out of the room, not hot air. So they did a good job on installing the ductwork, but they designed it wrong in regards to how to effectively heat and cool this third floor guest room. And one thing that should have been done is insulation added to these exterior walls. Insulation of a particular type that covers the wood, because that wood is bridging the superheat from the attic into the drywall within the guest room. And that extra heat, along with the really cold, moist air coming out of the ducts, is allowing mold to grow. Now in this particular area under the bed, the air is not able to disperse that easily, so it's just blowing this cold, moist air onto the bed and the carpet and the walls, and that's why you have so much mold growth. I would throw out these mattresses and consider cleaning or disposing of porous material. This is the bottom side of the bed, and you can see there's extensive mold growth on that box spring, is what I think that is. Now the hard surfaces can be wiped off, and then the porous surfaces, the cleaning there depends on the type of equipment and essentially how clean you want it to be. And there may be some residual mold staining on the furniture. The HVAC system is complex in how the air duct design is set up. This is a dual zoned system, and I believe that this air handler is oversized for dual zoning, and that is a problem. And what that does is create too much humidity inside the air handler, and that cool, wet air is causing mold to grow on the internal insulation within the air handler and the 4 distribution boxes. This mold growth will spread throughout the home pretty much whenever it feels like it. So to check on the contamination in the air distribution system, I opened up a distribution box downstream of the coil, and you can see extensive mold growth on the liner. And you can also see an ultraviolet light in the air handler. This shows how ineffective these lights are because there's obviously extensive mold growth in the system. The good news is that when we look at the secondary flex duct coming off the boxes, they look clean. They look really clean. So there will be some mold spores on them just because it's been passing through, but it's hard to justify cleaning them and definitely not replacing them. This is this other zone, and both of these zones have humidity issues. This is a supply register on the first floor, and you can see how the boot is not sealed to the floor. This is an issue because it allows air from the crawl space into the home, and that air in the crawl space has moisture and mold in it. We have a short cycling situation in which we have an oversized air handler. We think no load calculations were pulled. And then the system, which is covering about a 5 or 1,500 square foot area, has been zoned. Here's a Honeywell zone box. And so the solution for this is to add a whole house dehumidifier. And one thought is a vertical dehumidifier takes this spot, and we tee off of this 12-inch return duct, so that brings air into the dehumidifier. And then from the dehumidifier we run two supplies, and one comes over to a 14-inch box supplying this quadrant of the home. We tee into it, and then coming off that dehumidifier is another tee, and it makes its way somehow around here and tees into this 14-inch that supplies this distribution box for the bonus room or the man cave. There is a need for mold remediation within the distribution boxes and the air handler on the duct liner. However, the visual for one of the supply vents showed no visual mold growth within the flex duct, despite that there is excessive mold on the supply registers within the second and third floor. And the condensation line for the dehumidifier will tee into and use the current condensation line. We'll need to have an electrician pull an outlet for the dehumidifier. And the problem with all of this is space, in that we're going to make it a little bit tighter for maintenance on the air handler, but I think all in all it'll fit, as we have our dehumidifier here, our tee, and then we run on up and over.